Welcome to a video for the Hockey ACT JOEYS program on mentoring. My name is Sterling Sharp and I'm the Hockey ACT Officiating Development Coordinator, and throughout this video I'm going to be explaining to you what the role of the mentor is throughout the various stages of the JOEYS program. To begin with, we'll be talking about the role of the mentor itself and what mentoring is. So your role as the mentor within the JOEYS program is primarily to make your Joey feel comfortable and safe, to answer their questions and to give them clear directions. In other words, you're just trying to make them a better umpire than when they walked onto the field before your game. This means that it is very important that you actually need to know who your Joeys are. So the pre-match discussion that you have with them becomes so very important. Within that conversation, you should be finding out things like how much umpiring have they done, how comfortable they are with certain rules, or how comfortable they are blowing the whistle. And this would change your strategies on how you're actually going to go about operationalizing the game itself or umpiring the game. Please note that within the under-13s competition, as the JOEYS mentor, you most likely will end up umpiring most of those games and simply explaining what your decisions are to your Joey. This is perfectly okay. As your Joey gets more confidence and gets more experience, they will become more comfortable in blowing their whistle and identifying the breaches of the rules. Overall, your overarching aim is to ensure that Joey leaves the field with a smile on their face. If they leave with a smile on their face, they're more likely to come back, and hopefully you've also imparted some hockey knowledge on them. So what is it that the mentor is actually looking for? On screen at the moment is the 5C model. Concentration, so you're looking to make sure that your Joey can remain focused throughout the entire game. And remember that a 25-minute half can actually be quite a long time for a junior umpire. We also need to look at their awareness when the play is in the other umpire's half. Confidence is next. Their presentation as an umpire, if they're dressed appropriately, how they stand on the field, are their shoulders nice and high, their arms nice and straight, all those sorts of things. Clear instructions are given. For example, you're not 5 meters, or we want the free hit over here, or you take your 16 in line where the ball went out, those sorts of things. And how loud they can blow their whistle, and how consistently they can blow that whistle. Communication is next. Are they approachable? Are they respectful? Do they use the whistle to communicate with players? A difference between a loud whistle and a soft whistle, or the double toot or the loud whistle to get people's attentions when the initial whistle may not have been heard, those sorts of things. Clear hand signals to signal what a breach is for, and whether they have a loud voice that they can project across the field and those sorts of things. Next is competence. Knowledge of the rules, their positioning, and very importantly also their mobility, their movement, their ability to take some quick steps in the circle, for example, whether they can keep up with the play, and if they are actually asking you questions about some decisions they made or rules that they're not sure of, and all those sorts of things. And lastly, we're looking at consistency, applying the rules consistently throughout the whole game and not favouring particular teams or players. Now, it is very useful to note here that how we look at these 5 C's is going to differ from under 13s through to under 18s and into the senior competition. So it should be noted that our JOEYS program does have 3 different tiers. Tier 1 is our under 13s competition, Tier 2 is our under 15s competition, and Tier 3 is our under 18 competition. When umpires are in Tier 1, they are beginner umpires. Okay, we will have a 1-to-1 umpire to mentor ratio, and the mentor is on the field next to the umpire at all times. As you progress into Tier 2, you should be able to competently umpire by yourself. However, we do know that some umpires get pushed up while they're competent under 13s. They might not necessarily have the confidence to umpire under 15s, and so we might have an umpire mentor go onto the field with the umpire. We'll talk more about that in just a moment. But generally what we'll have at under 15s or Tier 2 level is a 2-to-1 umpire to mentor ratio, whereby the mentor is primarily based on the sideline and giving advice to the umpires at half and full time. At Tier 3, this is where the umpires have progressed to past competent at under 15s level to being able to umpire under 18s. Now the under 18s competition is a fairly high standard. It is a fast-paced game and players do need to be managed, and this is where we start teaching quite a lot of those management skills. Again, we will have a 2-to-1 umpire to mentor ratio, and that feedback is given a half and full time. And this is also where we start to transition our Joeys into representative opportunities as well as into senior matches. At the under-13s level, it's important to remember that our umpires are brand new to umpiring. Some may have done a season of Joeys, but still we'd consider them to be new to umpiring. As such, they may very well lack confidence. They will need to be supported in many different ways. This includes rule knowledge and rule application in particular, and also their positioning. Most of them won't know where to stand on the field, and it's certainly up to the mentor to help guide the Joey in that situation. One thing to remember is that we need to start slow. Our pre-match conversation that we have with the Joeys becomes very, very important, because if you have a brand new Joey who has never blown a whistle before, then they might just want to shadow you for a game. Once they've shadowed someone for a game, they might feel comfortable in their next game blowing all the feet that they see, and that might be the only rule that they blow, and that's perfectly okay. Eventually, over time, they will build up their confidence, they will build up their game knowledge and their knowledge of where to stand on the pitch and so on, to the point where they can umpire a whole game by themselves. But for some people, that might be a slow process. As mentors, we need to know who our Joeys are so we can adapt our strategies for each game to the actual Joey that is put in front of us. Just a note there that as on-field mentors, we are there to assist the learner umpire by showing them positioning, signalling, explaining rules where necessary, prompting decision-making, talking about areas of control, and teaching them everything that there is to know about umpiring. But a word of caution there, we don't want to overload them. The best thing to do with a brand new Joey, or someone who's only a couple of games old, is to just give them the most important bits of information and not overload them. If we overload them, we risk that important information being lost, and potentially we also risk them not having a good time, them not enjoying the experience, and potentially leaving the program. At the under 15s and under 18s level, this is where our Joeys have shown that they are competent enough to umpire a game of hockey by themselves. However, we do know that with the under 15 2 division in particular, some Joeys might be competent to umpire under 13s by themselves, but might not have the confidence to umpire under 15s by themselves. And so there might be instances where the mentor, who would normally be on the sideline, might need to go onto the field. We'll touch on that a little bit later in this slide. Some notes on the off-field mentor role. They accompany the learner umpire to pre-match duties, they have a conversation with them, they do the coin toss and so on, and also observes the learner umpire or the Joey from the sideline during the match. You have to take notes. You can do this on a bit of paper, you can do this on your phone. Please make sure that that's the only thing you're doing on your phone at the time. And you're very welcome to have conversations with your Joeys at halftime and full time. Just remember that at halftime, you do only have 4 minutes. It's a short period of time, so it does go by quickly. So make your points short, crisp, and to the point. And at full time, you might have a situation where your Joey might need to run off and play or have another commitment to go to. So again, the short, sharp messaging, again, to the point is really useful. I would recommend actually checking the time commitment that your Joey has before you start those conversations or even start the game. That way you can tailor your feedback according to the time that you have available to them. Now, you're not responsible for blowing whistles during the fixture unless you can actually identify that your Joey needs you to go onto the field and help them. And sometimes we have days where the Joeys just aren't having a good day, or they're not feeling very confident, or they might have got an injury and can't move very well. And by all means, if you identify that you need to go onto the field and help them, please do so. You're certainly within your remit to go onto the field and help out, and I'm sure that the teams that are on the field would very much appreciate that as well. This gets less likely and less accepted, I guess, at the under 18s level. But there are also situations there where it might be appropriate, and you might end up, for example, with two teams who don't necessarily want to play hockey. They might want to play rugby, for example, and if you do identify that that's happening and the game's out of control, then you might very well need to step onto the field and help those Joeys out as well. Something else to note about the under-18s competition is that as the mentor, you actually might be on the field umpiring alongside a Joey. And in that case, your role is to support them in their development. So you can act as that senior umpire type of person who can pick up on things if the Joey doesn't. But at the same time, your role is to help bring them up to your standard rather than to come down to their standard. So you want to help bring them up to the standard of the game. So how do Joeys transition from one tier to the next? Well, there are a list of competencies that the Joeys do need to tick off to do so, and the Joey mentors yourselves, this is where you come into play. And the communication that you have with the Joeys coordinator becomes very important here. Once you observe that a Joey is umpiring well enough to step up to the next level, or you can identify that they're close to being up to the next level, this is where we need to start communicating with the Joeys coordinator to make sure that we have the availability in the room and the planning in advance to get that Joey to that next level. Once the Joeys reach tier 3 or the under 18s level, that's also when we start looking at transitioning them into senior hockey. On screen at the moment is our tier 1, tier 2 and tier 3 criteria for what's expected from the Joeys, listed under what is expected from me, and also what is expected from the mentors. Now you can find this on, I think it was pages 7 and 8 of the Joeys handbook for this year, and I'd encourage you to give these a read, but I've just listed them here just for your visibility. If you do have any questions about the Joeys program, or any comments or any concerns about mentoring Joeys, the Joeys themselves, or anything to do with officiating here in the ACT, or even if you have concerns about players or coaches or spectators on and around the field around the junior competition, please do get in touch with Hockey ACT. If it's something directly related to the Joeys program, then please email Nicole at the hockeyact.joeys outlook email address. Please note though that Nicole is a volunteer, and her role is primarily around the rostering. So if your concern relates to something else, then please feel free to flick that through to myself as the Hockey ACT Officiating Development Coordinator at sterling.sharp@hockeyact.org.au, and we will action your question, comment or concern as appropriate. Thank you so much for listening to this video. I hope it clarifies what the role of the mentor is at the different levels of the Hockey ACT Joeys program. And again, if you have any questions, please do flick those through.